Welcome to In the Black, the podcast that shines a light on resilience, transformation, and the power of reinvention. I'm Araceli, and each week my co host Shannon and I sit down with incredible women who've faced some of life's hardest challenges, from personal setbacks to societal obstacles, and have emerged onto the other side stronger, driven, and ready to make a difference.
On In the Black, we celebrate these stories of strength and success, diving deep into the journeys of women who turned pain into purpose, adversity into action, and now dedicate themselves to making the world a better place in their own way. They're here to inspire, share hard-earned wisdom, and remind us that no matter how dark things may seem, life is cyclical and the dawn is coming. So whether you're looking for inspiration, motivation, or just a reminder, change is always possible. This is the podcast for you. Welcome to In the Black.
And on today's episode, we have Nicole with us. Nicole's unique journey to becoming a death doula was shaped by her initial lack of experience in the field, which fueled her deep understanding of the fears and anxieties that often surround the end of life. Today, she is dedicated to guiding others through these difficult emotions, providing support, comfort, and a compassionate presence for those navigating their final moments and the loved ones who accompany them. Welcome, Nicole, to In the Black.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate you both, and I'm so happy to be here.
All right. So I have met you before in real life and absolutely loved what we had to talk about, and just your energy as a human being is just so powerful. And so introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about who you are, what you're doing right now. Just fill us in on the very basic parts of you.
Yeah. So I'm Niki Staub. I have been back in Kansas City for about 4 years now. We were in Indianapolis for 10 years. Honestly, I had the hardest time making friends in Indianapolis, and I really thought that was me. And so getting back to Kansas City and really seeing my light shine here, meeting so many different amazing people, making friends, it just really made me realize when you are in the right spot with the right people, how much more your light can shine. And so that has been just a huge growth for me. Absolutely. So I actually am running 2 nonprofits right now, which I was not meaning to. So one, I actually both have to do with my grandmothers. So my grandmother that I actually caregive for now, she's 93. Her name is Twyla, and she is amazing. She's feisty and hilarious and wonderful. And she, I really, working with her and working with my clients as a doula, I really realized that caregivers were not getting taken care of. So that is what Rings of Care comes in. We make sure to focus on caregivers. And then the other nonprofit is from End of Life Doulas. It's called Casey End of Life, and we really focus on a holistic support for families at end of life. I've got 3 kiddos and a husband, and let me see what else. That's really takes up, I think, most of my time.
I think that's very understandable. Kids tend to take up a lot of time. My daughter has her Christmas program tonight for choir, so we're going to that tonight. So I'm curious, getting into being a death doula and creating these nonprofits, can you take us back to like a pivotal moment in your life when you faced a significant challenge and what was happening at that time? How did it impact you, and how did it lead to where you are today?
Absolutely. So we were in Indiana. Like I said, I was I made a couple of friends. I was a stay-at-home mom at the time. And I was really trying to think, what would be like the next steps for me once my youngest kind of got into school. And I was so really excited to get back to Kansas City anyway, because I knew from the moment we left, I'm like, my grandmother's here, my sisters are here, my aunt and uncle are here, like my best friend was here. Like this is really where we needed to be. So when my youngest was about 10 months old, my grandmother on my dad's side, my paternal grandmother, we got the call that she was actively dying. So, somebody, I'm living in a society, just like everybody else, where we don't talk about death. We don't talk about what actively dying is. We don't talk about any of those things. And so I didn't really know what to expect. I knew I wanted to be there for her. I knew I was absolutely going. So I packed up the kiddos and we drove to Missouri. And my grandmother and I were always very, very close. So I knew, that it was, I'd been to the nursing home before. It wasn't the nursing home that made me nervous. It wasn't my grandmother that made me nervous, anything like that. But walking in and seeing her unresponsive, it just like, I kind of froze up. And I went and I sat into this chair that was like in the corner as far away from her as possible. And I was like focusing on the kids and all this stuff. And I was really sitting in fear and anxiety. And I was just like, I don't know what to do. We're so used to giving things away in our society, like giving, our health to the doctors, giving in our hospitals, giving our death to hospice. We don't own these things. We don't realize that they are here for us, and they're learning, and they're a transition, and they're a part of bringing the family together. We have started doing that back with birth. With birthing doulas, it's absolutely amazing. We used to give that away too and say, oh, I don't know I've never birthed a baby before. Like I'll give that to the doctors. I'll give that to the nurses. I'll give that to the hospital. So, and really people are coming back and saying, no, we've been doing this for thousands of years. Women know how to do this. Our bodies know how to do this. I'm taking this back. I'm going to be becoming in charge of having a birth plan and who is going to be my doctor and where I'm going to give birth and all these things. And so we've really taken that back. And so I was sitting next, in my grandmother's room, and I was like, I'm afraid I was going to step on hospice's toes or the nursing home or hurt her or something, stupid. And I had this thought in my head that came and said, what would your grandmother be doing if you were in that bed? Would she just be sitting here in fear and anxiety? And I was like, nope, she would not be doing that. She would be over there. She would be holding my hand. She would be talking to me. She would be a part of this with me. And so that's what I did. I left that fear and that anxiety in that chair. And I picked up my 10-month-old at the time, Alex. And I said, Grandma, I want you to get to meet Alex before you pass. So I laid him in her arms, and she was unresponsive at this point. She wasn't speaking or saying or moving or anything. And her arm reached up and held him close to her. And I thought, oh my God, she's here. She's there. She's still my grandmother. And so that's when like all of that just left. And I became the granddaughter that I always was, and I treated her like the grandmother that she always was. And I talked to her. I told her about what was going on. I told her about the family drama that she'd been missing. I told her about, all the things. And I looked down. I was holding her hand finally, and I saw that she had not had a manicure in a while. And she was the type of woman that had to have her nails done to the T all the time. I knew her favorite nail polish. I knew exactly where it was at her house. I was like, okay, I'm coming tomorrow and giving you a manicure. And so I went home that evening, and I came back and I brought all the manicure stuff. I brought her favorite nail polish, and I sat down next to her and I said, Grandma, I would love to give you a manicure. I hope that's okay. And her arm was just laying next to her side, and she took her hand and she moved it towards me like this. And I was just like, like once again, like, oh my gosh. And I realized, I sat with that. I allowed myself to really, sit with those things and really feel what was going on, and realize that if I would have just stayed in that anxiety and fear, that I would have never had these beautiful experiences with her. I would have never had these lost moments. And when we have that little bit of quantity of time, sometimes we get fearful and we just kind of let it go. But I was able to really make that small quantity into just a big quality time. We really, I was able to connect with her again. I was able, it was on a different level, for sure. But to be able to be a part of that. And that afternoon, my aunt and uncle and my dad were all sitting around, and they kept saying, "Oh, Mom, it's okay for you to go. You can go." And I kind of started laughing at that point, and they looked at me and they were like, "What?" I was like, "Do you not remember who this lady is? She is probably thinking to herself, I'm going to go when I damn well please, when and where and how I want to go. Like you all do. I do not need your permission. I do not need whatever." She's probably flipping them off in her head. Like that was her. And it was just that realization that even at end of life, even at death, that we are still human. We are still ourselves. And we deserve that dignity, that comfort, that love, that we cherish, and we need it, I think, more even at end of life. So that's really, I was like, okay, this is it. Like I found, like, this is my purpose. This is what I am here to do. I need to advocate for families, for people that are going through this, that don't know, that have given all of that away and are afraid to hold it back, and to realize that it's ours, with our families. So that's why, excuse me, I looked into becoming a hospice worker, and I just, like, that wasn't it. I wasn't connecting with any options, that were there. And so then I found doulas, and I was like, this is it. So doula actually is a Greek word, and it means women helping women. And I loved that. And the first, end of life doulas are a very new thing. It's about 10 to 15 years old. But one of the first end of life doulas actually trained as a birthing doula to see how doulas come in, how they work with the baby, how they work with the mother, how they work with the spouse, how they work with the healthcare team, and to really make that a special moment for everyone. And so we are really able to do that. There's so many similarities between the transition of birth and the transition of death. And it can be very beautiful. I've sat with people who didn't have anybody, and just being able to bear witness, to be there for them, to be a part of that. It was an honor. It's an absolute honor. And the other thing, we plan our weddings to the T. We plan our birthing, our births now. And we still are afraid to plan our deaths because we're, afraid, okay, oh my gosh, if I'm going to talk about it, it's going to happen. Well, doesn't mean it's going to happen right now, but yeah, it's going to happen in the future. And the more you plan for it, the more you accept, the more that you look into what you would want, the more that you feel like you have a little more control, the more you feel like you have a sense of, okay, this is going to be hard, just like birth is, but I can get through this, and I don't have to get through it alone. So we do, as end of life doulas, we do vigil planning, which is one of my favorite things. We talk and we, say, what kind of things do you want at end of life? Do you want, I bring in plants, to a lot of nursing homes. I bring in lamps because that light is so harsh and like unforgiving. We bring in smell goods, like diffusers of smells that they would like. We ask them, who do you want there? Who don't you want there? Because there's times, you've got that one family member who's going to talk your ear off, and they're going to do it when you're, trying to sit and be peaceful. And then you're like, oh my gosh, could you get Aunt Susie out of here? But And you don't have to have the harsh soaps of that, hospice brings in, or the nursing homes bring in. We can bring in your own soaps. We can bring in your own, things that give you comfort, your own lotions and things like that. These things don't end just because we're at end of life. We still love these things and cherish these things. And so it's really important to really have that plan. And I actually worked with a woman. She did not have any family, but she had her friends, and her friends came together, and we were going through this plan and trying to figure out what she wanted. And I asked, what about music? She went, any music? She's like, I'm not really a big music person. And so I was like, well, what about like a TV or movie? Is there anything that you would want playing in the background? And she's like, no, nothing really. And we're kind of thinking about it. I was like, what about books? What if we came and read you books? And like, the light in her eyes just lit up, and she's like, yes, that's what I want. And so her friends and I went like on this scavenger hunt around her house and found all these books that she had listed that she wanted us to read. And every night we would come and we would read to her. And it was so beautiful and so peaceful. And when you're able to give back in those moments, it's less scary. And you're able to process your grief as when you're able to give back, and that makes it just a little bit easier, a little bit more. You're enjoying that time. You're not just constantly in fear. You're able to really give back, and so that's a little bit of what we do.
We really like to kind of dig into people's past and how it shaped who they are now, especially framing the words around what they've experienced. And so you talked about how in Indiana you were super lonely. You've talked about, coming and watching your grandma as she made this transition. What were some moments that really made an impact on you, or personally, or some things that in your own personal journey have led you to be here?
Yeah, so I would say, honestly, when I grabbed on to the thought, like, I need to get back to Kansas City, it was, we'd been there for about 10 years. I guess it was about 8 years, and COVID hit. And that's really one of the things that I've noticed too, with our society, like we were isolating a lot more before COVID hit. And then we were really forced to during COVID. And at one point, before COVID hit, I went to see my other grandma, who I'm caregiving for now. She had fallen right, I'd say it was probably right, it wasn't too long before COVID had hit. She'd fallen and she'd broken her rib, or fractured her ribs. And so I went to go check on her, and she lived here in Kansas City. Like I said, I have lots of family that lived here. And I went to stay with her to kind of help her recover. And I realized that she was not eating properly. She was not taking her meds properly. And so like I was seeing all of this, like, we had no idea. We thought just, everything's fine. We talked to her. She says everything's fine. Everything's fine. And I think that that realization, and it is very hard. When was the granddaughter, and I'm coming in to help, but like seeing, oh, she might need more help than I feel comfortable giving at this point. And learning to get out of that comfort zone is something that has been a reoccurring theme, I guess, for me. And what I see when I get out of that comfort zone is the beauty that can come from that. When I, got out of my comfort zone with my grandma, and I was like, okay, no, she needs more help. And yes, I want to be taken care of. I'm the granddaughter, like, she'd always take care of me, but like, I need to get out of that comfort zone, and I need to step up and get things situated. And so I did. I was able to get her situated. I was able to get her meds. I talked to her doctor, what was going on, figuring all the things out. And that's really been kind of something that's continued. Even when I went back to Indiana, luckily she was able to go stay with my aunt and uncle during COVID. But when we moved back, like I knew like this, I have to get back. I have to be able to help her, because I couldn't imagine when I was younger, her giving me to a stranger to watch or to change my diaper or to whatever. And so I know that, not everybody has this luxury to do this, but I wanted to be able to care for her like she cared for me. She's the reason that I'm still here. She has gotten me through so many ups and downs in my life. And when I hear her, like today, I go there every morning, and today was a hard morning. But when I hear her say to me, I can't really, everything feels weird. This place feels strange. I'm not recognizing my things. She goes, but I recognize your face, and it makes me feel okay that I know at least you. I know, and I can wrap my, I can hold on to that. And so that's really, it's not comfortable for me to have to get her dressed and get her changed and cleaned up and showered and all of that. Um, but I'm finding like that I'm finding joy in that uncomfortableness. I'm finding joy in going out and networking. I would love to just stay in my house and like not talk to anybody, but that's not really healthy or great. So getting out and networking and finding people like you and Shannon, and just all of these other people who are doing amazing things and getting out of their comfort zones and listening to, their stories and listening. I love what you're doing, like being able to tell our stories. And, and I got out of my comfort zone and becoming a doula is a new profession. And, we did this training and they were like, okay, there you go. Good luck. I was like, what? That's it. Okay. I have no business experience, and I'm just supposed to start this. And okay. But that's what I did. I came back to Kansas City and I was like, well, first of all, doulas right now it's private pay. Insurance doesn't acknowledge us. So I was like, I cannot imagine sitting at somebody's bedside and then thinking, their family thinking, oh my God, I have to pay another hour. Could this person just pass? Like, this is getting to be too much. So that's why we started the nonprofit, because we wanted to be able to pay our doulas, because it's a very important job. It's very important what we do, but also that it's a free service, so that we're able to help anybody who needs that extra help, not just people who can afford to pay for it. So that's another really important part. And like I said, it's been very uncomfortable starting a new business, starting a nonprofit, starting two. And it's been very, we've got our growing pains and we're learning. But to see the beauty that comes out of getting uncomfortable, it's definitely made me want to do more and get out there more and get more uncomfortable. And when I feel like, oh, this feels like I want to just stay home and whatever, I'm like, okay, that means that I'm doing something good. I need to get out there. I need to let people know what we are, who we are. I was actually on the radio a few days ago, and that was highly uncomfortable. But we were able to get that story out and to really let people know who we are and what we're doing. And hopefully we can help somebody, help them, to have a peaceful transition, a peaceful passing, anything to help a caregiver who might be, burnt out and struggling. If we can help them and help get into the weeds with them, that's where the good stuff is.
I actually met Rachel Blankenship yesterday.
Oh, yay!
For the first time. And she was like, yeah, I do Rings of Care. I was like, oh, with Niki?
So, yeah, she's awesome. Yeah, and I met her at a networking event that I did not want to go to. It was my first networking event. I was like, oh God, why do people do this? But I met her there, and it was amazing. Her dad had a cancer diagnosis. She was having difficulty with some family stuff. And that's one of the things we do is really tightrope. There's so much so much at end of life, with all kinds of fear and anxiety, money, all the things. It's really hard, and so being able to walk somebody through that journey is absolutely amazing. And so we were able to. I told her about kind of the caregiving stuff that I was thinking, and she was like, "Yeah, let's do it. This is really important. Caregivers need help." And when we go into our workshops about helping people to learn how to build their own village, train them like exactly what we need to do. Let's do this together. Let's build your village together before crisis hits, so that when crisis hits, you have people. You have your rings of care, your people around you who can help out and who are able to. And that can be anybody from family, neighbors, coworkers, a church community, anybody out there, book club. And really, I know it's super simple or easier to just hide in our homes and stay separated from the world, but we're all going to be caregivers or needing to be cared for at some time, and we're going to need other people's help. And if we don't have people around us, if we don't build that beforehand, it's I've seen what happens when you don't have anybody. That's something else we've helped. Some people didn't have anyone. They were taking care of themselves, and it was not going well. So it's really important to have people around you. We're not meant to be loners as much as we want to be sometimes.
When doulas work with you, how do people get money, I guess, help? How do the families reach out and get help with having a doula for them?
Yeah, absolutely. And I appreciate you asking. So we have a website called kcendoflife.org. So we have about 15 doulas right now in the Kansas City area. But also I didn't want it to just be a space for Kansas City doulas. Like I want it to grow so that anybody because there's so many people out there that have that doula heart. They want to help. They want to help. They've been through a death that was horrible or was wonderful, and they want to be able to help out. And so we are trying to build, not only build for the Kansas City area, we have doulas in Lawrence, Jeff City, North, South, like all over the KC area. But we're also trying to build something so that doulas who are all over the nation or internationally can have some place where we can be that business part of it for them. So they might not have the marketing skills. They might not have, the skills to get paid or, all of that stuff. So we're trying to kind of put together what we are building, because we're doing it for ourselves anyway, so that we can give that away to doulas across the nation as well at some point. So yeah, and that's the thing too, like you can choose your doula. I do not have all the tools in my belt. I used to think that I had to. I used to think I had to be able to do all the things. And I realized that's not how things are supposed to work. I have my superpowers, and this other doula has their superpowers. And you might be able to, use my superpowers and having conversations and planning, and a guided meditation is a big thing I do. But you might want also Reiki or massage or something else. Well, we have doulas that do that as well. And so that they can come in. So it's not just, you're not just getting me, you're getting our whole network, which is really a beautiful thing. We have doulas who specialize in pet loss. We have doulas who specialize in grief therapy, who are counselors, therapists. We have doulas who were nurses. We have doulas, who do an array of things. So we really, that was another part of wanting to get us all together, is that we really want to be able to provide that holistic, and that means whole body. That means everything. So we give that medical stuff to hospice. Hospice takes care of everything medical, but we are here for anything else, practical things. I will be reading to somebody, do a guided meditation, get some laundry done, and have a conversation about why we're so angry right now about, because you just found out, something else is going on. So that's kind of another part is I tell people going in without any expectations, because I never know what that's going to hold when I see a client. I've walked into a hospital my first day with this client. They were told that everything was going to be fine. Then they were told, oh, you just need this surgery. And then they were told, you have 3 days to live. And so this was horrifying for this client and their family. I walked into the hospital and tensions were very high. There was a lot of family stuff going on, a lot of fear, anxiety, all of the things. Anger. And there's a little 3-year-old, her grandson was just kind of running around, and everybody, it was making people more tense at that time. And I came in, I was like, hey, my name's Niki. I'm your death doula. Could I just take little man around and we could run the hallways for a little bit while things calm down in here? And so that's what I did. I hung out and we ran hallways for 30 minutes to an hour while everything calmed down. And then I was able to come in and we were able to have conversations about that anger, about that grief. And it changes. Sometimes I come in and we get, and I hold space for wherever my client and their family is, So if today we're angry, we're going to get in, we're going to get dirty, we're going to talk about being angry, we're going to yell, we're going to scream, we're going to throw things, whatever that is. And then tomorrow we might be joking and having, a laugh. So it really changes. And that's how humans are. We are all over the map with our emotions. And we're told, that we shouldn't be. We should just be kind of even keeled and chill and roll with the punches, but that's just not who we are. And so being able to allow people to feel those feelings and get through, that's how you get through them. You can't hide your anger. You can't pretend it's not there. You've got to feel those feelings. And yes, you can do it appropriately. Like you don't have to fight somebody or, but if you don't allow yourself to feel those feelings, they're not going to go away. They'll just manifest into something else fun later down the road. So.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. That was a lot.
No, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, don't be sorry. That was amazing. So I think for me, when I look at this, my mom is getting older, and I know that this time is coming in my life. And for people that are looking forward or who are just in that beginning stages of where you're at with your grandma, like, what would you recommend as far as setting things up and preparing ourselves and accepting what's coming?
Honestly, another big thing that we do, I haven't actually mentioned, is have those hard conversations. It's you don't know until you know, and at some point they're not going to be able to have those conversations with you. I just found out last month that I was asking my grandma, I was like, oh, where do you want to be buried? I just assumed my family had already taken care of this and had this conversation. And she was like, oh, I don't know. And I was like, screech, wait, what? You're 93, woman. Like we have not had this conversation yet. I just thought everybody already knew. So yeah, have those conversations. And yes, they're hard. And get your legal stuff done. That is another and it doesn't have to be, that's another thing we do. It does not have to be hard. I want to tell everybody, it does not have to be expensive. We can help you do it for free. It's called a power of attorney. A power of attorney is something that decides who makes decisions if that loved one cannot make those decisions for themselves. So that's what the power of attorney does. So that if you're in a car accident, anybody over 18 should do this. We actually did we're vendors at KC Pride Fest, and we had like 18, 20-year-olds, immortal, walking by, and they were like, oh, I don't need that. And I was like, okay, so who is going to be making decisions for you if you cannot make those decisions? And they were thinking for a minute. And, a lot of people who in the LGBTQIA+ community don't have the family. They've had family turn away from them. They don't have. And so when they realize that the people that have shunned them, turned them away, kicked them out, are the ones that would be making decisions for them, they were like, oh my God, give that to me now. Like, and give me 5 more so that, my friends can have, we can figure this out together. Because sometimes that's what happens. And I see that, and it can be beautiful when you don't have, just because you don't have blood relatives or you don't have family who are in your corner, it doesn't mean that you don't have family. Those friends, those people around you, that village, it's who you build and who you bring in, can stand up and will stand up. And I'm telling you, when they do, because they know you best and they love you so much, it's not just because they have to be there, they want to be there. That is one of the most beautiful deaths that I was honored to be a witness, was a woman who there was no family. It was just her friends who came around, and I organized. We had them coming at different times and different places, and it was just beautiful to watch everybody come in and do for her and be there for her and show their love. So yeah, have conversations, because that's the only way that you'll know what you need to do, what issues are. I didn't know with my grandma, I didn't know she wasn't taking her meds. I didn't know she wasn't eating, I just assumed everything was fine. Have those hard conversations. And if you can't have them, reach out to us. We're happy to have them for you. Like you said, Rachel Blankenship, she's a mediator. Mediators can come in and have those hard conversations as well. But yeah, really, it gets difficult and it's uncomfortable, but get uncomfortable, because that's when the good stuff comes.
Beautiful. Thank you. So before we get to the closing questions, I just have one more question. As you were going through the journey, and this is for you personally, this isn't about the Doula Foundation, it's just you personally, like as you were going through the journey of finding your purpose and figuring out that this is what I want to do, if there's someone who is in that process of like figuring out who they are and what they really want to do and that sort of thing, and they want to turn this challenge that they have going on in their own life into something that makes an impact on the world around them, what advice would you give them?
I remember the day that my life changed. My youngest was 4 years old, and we were still in Indiana. And I looked down at him, and I was thinking, "Oh, what am I going to do? When he goes to school? Like I still." I went to college, I graduated, I still didn't know what I wanted to do. Like, I just kind of assumed it would come to me, and it just never did. So I just stayed at home, and those were wonderful. And that was beautiful. And I feel honored to be able to have done that. But I still, I was like, what is my purpose? Like this isn't just it, for me. And, so I looked at him, and I realized, I didn't know who I was. I did not know. I knew myself as a mother. I knew myself as a wife. I knew myself as a friend, as a daughter, as a granddaughter. But I did not know Niki for Niki. And that scared the shit out of me, to be honest. And it saddened me. And I thought, how do I find this person? Like, if I don't know myself now, like, how do I figure that out? And so like I said, I was looking at my 4-year-old, and I thought, I know his favorite color. I know all my kids' favorite colors. I know my husband's favorite color. I know, my mom's. Like, what's my favorite color? And like, and I sat with that for because I knew it was blue, but like, what blue? There's so many blues. Right. And so I sat with that for like a week, like just doing that inward thing, and I looked at different colors and I looked at different things, and I was like, what is that? And when I found it, like that beautiful aqua, I was like, this is it. And then, at the time we were listening to like Blippi and, all the things. And I'm like, okay, so what music is it, that I like? And And so I really came back to like my childhood, to my teenage years. And I was like, what did the Niki then, when you don't have to be all the things for everybody, like what did that Niki enjoy? What made me tick? What made me happy? What was my favorite thing? And I always enjoyed being with my grandparents. I always enjoyed talking with older folks. Like I've always just kind of been that, I don't know, old person in a little body. And so I realized, you know, like, and it didn't just go from favorite color to favorite music to that. Like it was a lot of inner figuring out, what do I like? What do I want to eat? What am, you know, like, and listening to my body, like, what are my cravings right now? Like, what am I, you know, cause I'm so like, what do you want to for dinner? And I'm like, so indecisive because I'm always thinking about like, well, what am I going to make for my kids? And what would my husband want? And like, what do I want? What is it that I want? And it took me a while. I would say, I've been working on that for the last, 5 years, almost 6 years now. And really, it took me about 2 years to figure out that I wanted to do the end of life work, by going back to what my grandmother, you know, that inner things of how that made me feel, and what brings me joy, and figuring out what brings me joy is really how I found myself and figured that out again.
I love that. Now, the very last question that I'll be asking, what does being in the Black or in the positive in your life mean to you personally?
So being, I would say, once I finally, it took so much work. Like I really had to, it was like, I had to study myself, again. And now that it kind of just comes, it's a lot easier. But when I go into like with a client, when I go in with just my family or whomever, I've really been able, now that I'm getting to know myself better, that I'm knowing like who I am, and I'm having more confidence in myself. That's it. Like being able to trust myself, being able to trust that what I have in me is good enough, for not anybody else, because that doesn't matter, but good enough for myself. And that is when I found that what I am doing, the decisions I'm making, are good enough for me to be able to sleep at night, to be able to look back on, and it, you know, it might be still fear and anxiety, but I know myself, and I know that what I'm doing is important. And honestly, like the more I'm feeling, there are times like I'll go into a client's house and I will say things and do things, and I'm like, I don't know who was coming through me at that time, but that was flipping cool. You know, and being able to, I actually wanted to say one more story. I had a client who, her mom had passed, and she was about 19, and she was grieving big time, like left, went outside, was down, terrified, you know, crying, all the things. And I thanked her mother for allowing me to be there after she had passed, and honored. And I went outside, and her mother's favorite color was purple. And I go outside, and she's like this, you know, so everything else that just horrible was happening around her. And I see this purple butterfly just like dancing around her head. And I was like, oh my God, look up. Like there are signs, there are, if we have to, going inward is great, but like going inward and staying into the sadness and the anger is we have to come out of that. We have to be able to lift our heads up and look for our purple butterflies, look for what is around us, what is, you know, the world can be very scary, but can also be so beautiful. And that when I look up, when I'm driving and I'm getting angry and frustrated at whoever, the craziness on the highway, like I always look at the clouds and it just stops me. And I'm like, that's the beauty of this world. That's the beauty. That's why we're here. We are lucky enough to experience that beauty and really taking a step and remembering, like I used to when I was a kid, and I would look up and look at the clouds, and that brought me so much joy. So that's where I get in.
Thank you for sharing that last part of that story. I love those the stories that you'll never hear, like they are just experienced. So that's so cool. So what's next on your journey, and where can our listeners find you?
I don't know what's next on my journey, honestly, and that used to scare the crud out of me, but now I'm totally for it. I actually, September 19th of this year, I decided that I was done controlling my life, trying to hold on to things and control what was happening, and I took that leap and I said, okay, universe, I am doing an okay job, but I know there's more. And I think that I am getting in my own way. So I am done trying to control things. I am letting go, and I am giving to the universe and seeing what the universe has planned for me. I feel the universe has beautiful things planned for everyone on this earth. I feel that we are all a part of the divine, and that sometimes we get in our own heads and get in our own ways. And so I am really trying to not talk the talk about letting myself stop living in fear and anxiety, but to really walk the walk and jump off that cliff and see myself fly, hopefully. So I don't know what's in store, but I'm excited, whether that is, and I know that I have built a support system around me that if I fall on my face, that's okay too. That's also a part of learning, and that I've decided I'm okay with. So that is where I'm going. We'll see. And where you can find me, you can find us at www.kcendoflife.org or at ringsofcare.org if you need help building that village or help as a caregiver. That's another thing. People, seriously, we need each other. Reach out, ask for help, accept help. That's another thing we always have a hard time. And that's what we're really trying to do for people. So I'm out there going to try and get my hands dirty and really get in the weeds and see what beauty we can make out of it.
I love that so much. Thank you for joining us today. It has been absolutely amazing, and we definitely appreciate having you as a guest. And to all of our listeners, thank you for joining us as well on this episode. I hope that Niki's story left you feeling inspired and just reminds you of the incredible strength that lies within each of us. She has taken one of her toughest challenges and just transformed it into something so beautiful and powerful. And she's just showing us that even in those moments that we feel are so dark, it's still a way to bring light to the world.
If you enjoyed today's conversation, make sure to subscribe and share In the Black with another woman who could use a little encouragement. Together, we're building a community of passion, purpose, and power. Until next time, stay strong, stay inspired, and remember your story matters. Your choices change things, and being your most authentic self can and will change the world around you.